since we're handling GUIs and stuff like that a little differently with in-game, we're actually doing it right here. Now, right now, I'm just kind of throwing it on here. And in reality, I'll probably have a different sub that kind of works like GUI check. That way, when we do overlays and things of that nature, we can control it a lot better. But for now, we are doing it in this format. Actually, I do need to check because I need to see some basic code. So what we're going to do here is we do have it visible. The next thing we want to do is for each label np overlay.label. Basically, this is getting each of our labels, any labels that's actually in it, and it's going to draw to the screen. Basically, we're just going to check, is if it's visible, if it's supposed to be visible, then draw it. That's all. So in this case, we just do a GUI print, and very, very simple. Right now, I'm pretty much rewriting a lot of this. Later on, I'll probably have more of a actual reusable piece of code, but for now, I'm pretty much just reusing what I get here. Obviously, putting this in its own sub or something that we can reuse over and over will make a lot more sense than the way I'm doing it right now. But for now, this will work just fine. So now it should actually draw our text. We're going to go ahead and run it, though it doesn't do much, and though it won't really do anything, just so we can see how it looks and make sure it's positioned the way we want it. Plus, again, it's just good to test things. This will help make sure we're positioning it right, and like I said, it'll also help make sure that we have things pretty much set up the way we want. So there they are, and it's a good thing we did it, because as we can see, this is too low and this is too low. It's just not positioned properly. It's not positioned not properly, but the way we want it. So we're going to want to move it obviously up. So obviously the Y is wrong. I actually got the X pretty darn close on this. I'm very happy with that. I got it out of the red, so that's good. But we probably will want to move it a little bit more over. So we'll go ahead and just quickly modify that. And obviously, as you saw with the credits, we can do a lot more with labels than the basic stuff we're doing here. Same with the main menu, you saw that as well. So we're just going to change the position. We'll do 5 instead of 10. I think that'll work better. And since this was a little over, we're going to go ahead and move it up. We'll just go ahead and move it to 750 and see how that looks. Testing, testing, testing. That's all I gotta say. So new game. Let's pick it. Ah, that's much better. You see, that's a little bit up there. We probably want to push that up a little bit more. It just to center it a little better. Same with the menu. The menu looks good, but looks like it's a little too far to the right, so we'll probably go ahead and move that back as well. We won't need to test it after this because we pretty much know where it's at. I needed to bring that, what was it, down, I think? Yes, I think it was down. And this just needs to be scooted over a little bit. So we'll do 35, I think will work great. Now I'm going to forego testing it for now because I think I'm pretty happy with it. Before we go on to the actual compass, I want to go ahead and focus back on the location info. Sorry about that. I really got to watch that. We actually have a basic location info display. I don't remember if you remember seeing it from the old Celtic Crusader and the way it was showing stuff there. It actually was there, and that was back in the player stats. As you'll see, right about, where is it? Right here is the actual old location stat that they did. You are near location name, and it pretty much printed it. So we know location name is pretty much used to find out where you're at. We know it already exists, so we can make use of it. So we are going to make use of it. So what we're going to do here is we are actually going to start setting up our new sub, I guess. So we're actually going to make a brand new sub here. But no, back up. Sorry about that. I think I went too far. I need to focus. There we go. So right here we have GUI check, which is used for pretty much everything. It probably makes more sense to use GUI check for it, but since GUI check is a little more specific, for now I'm going to keep this separate. So we're actually going to add a new one, and this is 3/9/10. It's a new sub to handle GUI comments and checks for while in game. Pretty simple. Basically. So we're going to go ahead and call this call it GUI game check. That'll work. So we want it a lot like this, the way this is going. So we will go ahead and do this properly. The game stating isn't going to change too much. There will be a few differences for a few different things for various reasons. But for GUI game check specifically, there's only one game state, and that is in game. This one right here. So we really don't need to put a select case there for this part. For other stuff that there's various, and that's the primary difference, basically, is what I'm trying to say, between GUI check and GUI game check. GUI game check specifically is for the in-game game state, whereas GUI check is for multiple game states. So we're basically going to take all that code that we added, and we're going to just move it right over here. Simple. And then instead of calling that code, we're actually going to call the sub. And now the sub is going to handle everything for us for the basic checks, just like this one does for the others. It's also going to handle the other subs that we will run. What's great is, since we know this is confined, we actually don't have to run other subs like most of these do. We can just go ahead and just call it here. So a lot of the extra code that we usually do is probably going to go here. And that might change, it may not. It depends on where this stuff goes laterwards. But for now, for the sake of argument, since we know it's just for in-game, we can safely do that without worry. We could actually do it in GUI check, obviously, for each one, but it would take up a lot of extra space. So having subs here just help work. Don't want to break. So in this case, now that we have it set up, we have the actual GUI print. The first thing we want to do, let me go ahead and make a couple comments here, just explaining what it is. Basically, draw the in-game overlay. That's what it does. The first thing we wanted to do is update location info. Now, the reason we're actually doing updates and information after it draws is to give us a constant frame refresh rate. Otherwise, well, it would be too fast, or you wouldn't really notice, so there could be problems. It's easier to do it this way. Obviously, you could do it the other way, but I feel it's better to do it this way. So this is the way we're going to do it. So, update location info. Location info shouldn't be too difficult to do, so I'm not going to put it in its own sub. The compass will be in its own sub, and we'll get to that later because there's a lot more to it. But for this, it's very, very simple. All we're going to do is update the location info. So we want to do p overlay dot label text. What this little sub that I have on my CGUI is actually going to allow us to update the text in a label. Since it's contained in an array list in a structure, as a structure, it makes it fairly read-only, which means we can't make changes to it. So basically all this, the sub that we're using, that we're going to use to make a change to it, is basically going to remake it, just like if back when we did the title screen, without us having to completely remake it ourselves. It's a helper, much like other helpers that we are using for different things. It seems redundant, but it really actually helps make things simple, where you can specify one task and help keep your code clean. Plus, it's great practice for doing different helpers and stuff. So that's kind of why I've used it. So basically, all we do is it needs the ID and the new text. There is a boolean, because I actually have an option, and it's optional, of whether or not you can switch it back to what it was. I don't use it that much because it doesn't work perfectly and not that great, but for now it's in there. So all we need to know is the ID, which is 0. because that's the first label, and that's the location. The next is the actual text. Since we know there is a string or a variable that exists to actually update the location, we can use it, and it's called location name, we can use it to place here. So, much like the old one said, we're going to make our own. In this case, it'll say, you are near space, and then we go ahead and add, what is it, layer, what was it, location, yeah, location name. Okay, and that's it, because we don't need the boolean at all. That's it. That's simple. It's going to update the graphics to where we're at, because most of the location name stuff and that information is updated elsewhere.